Hello, and welcome to Becky's House of Sewing. This is my video podcast. I'm Becky. I'm in the Charlotte area of North Carolina, and I am talking to you about all things thread and needle, mostly cross-stitch and quilting, but you never know. You might get something in there. The minute you start saying, I only do this and I'll never do that, is immediately when you want to do the other thing. So, I am here to talk about cross stitch. Now, I have exciting news. I have a finish. For those of you who followed me, you probably can guess what has finished. But I wanted to share a little bit about that and a couple other things. So, why don't we get right to it, because I'm very excited. I knew I wanted to be sure I finished today because I was so close to it. I really wanted to share, and I got excited. And because Tuesday's kind of like my Friday, because today is my day, one of my days off. I may have stayed up really late last night. Worth it, totally worth it. Got up this morning, had a quick hello with my mother. Because we tend to meet early on Zoom and kind of catch up, and then the ladies kind of stroll on in, as it were. But I had to go to the chiropractor. Last week, I could tell my lower back was a little twingy. So I went ahead and made an appointment, and then my neck decided to join the party. So I had a quick chiropractic appointment to straighten me out. So been nursing that a little bit back to health. But that did not stop me from the finish. I'm like, I don't care if it hurts me or not. So, without further ado, let's talk about M. Bell 1856. That's right, people. This is the cover sheet of the chart. And here is my finish. Do, 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 do. Boom, 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 boom. Isn't she pretty? So you can see I personalized it on the bottom. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk a little bit about today. Because I really saved that to last. Because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Let me refer back to the sheet. So, let me refer back to the sheet on this so I can hold it straight. So the M here is 1/1. Ron, do you know what 1/1 is? 1/1 is one thread over one thread of floss to one thread of linen. Very small. I have never done it. I still have not done it. I attempted to do something similar, so see if I can do this so we can share a little side by side. If I had a flow chart, my dad would appreciate it, but I don't. I'm sorry. So you can kind of see the inspiration where she did an M, and then she did M. Bell, and then the date with a couple doodads in there. So I kind of did a similar version. I attempted to do 1/1 with that B. I failed miserably. I definitely need more practice on it. I think I would like to practice on a bigger piece of linen, and I mean a bigger thread count of linen. So I have heard some people are doing 1/1 like on a 28 count type even weave. Ron, do you know what a 28 count would be? So just as a reminder, this is a 36 count, which means there's 36 threads in an inch on the linen, on the ground cloth. So you divide that by 2, and that's how many inches you have, how many stitches you have per inch. And that helps you calculate what size fabric you need for the chart, because almost every chart gives you the across count and the height count of the stitches. Some of them, because there's really cool software out there these days, like Pattern Keeper and such, that will track your progress and help you see it on a screen bigger. And they also count, like, basically how many stitches you've done and how many stitches, how many X's are in an entire design, etc., etc. That doesn't really motivate me or excite me at all, so I don't really count that way. To me, the joy of it is that it's a simple stitch. And not that I'm opposed to specialty stitches, but just a cross is just very repetitive, and there's something soothing about that. But what really gets me more than anything, if I'm honest, is the sound of the needle and the thread going through the fabric. There's really nothing better. So just that, and there's also like a little vibration to it, because you can, as I'm holding the materials, you can kind of feel it kind of connect and get to the end of its length. I love it. And I love this. So look at the boldness of it. Let me take this down. So everything is 2/2 with this. I used black anchor, I think it's number 403 on the spools. After I started using it a little bit, I don't hate it, but it is not my first choice. I found that the plastic spool is actually kind of hard on the threads, because it has that little slit at the top to hold the threads so they don't unspool. And I think during shipping and stuff, the outer section kind of gets roughed up a little bit, because they're not, I don't know why a floss in I don't have any, in a skein that looks more like, this is not what a DMC skein looks like, but that travels like this is not as damaged. But I think because it's up against the hard plastic, I think it has more of an edge to it. And I felt like it got fuzzy and frayed, for lack of a better term. So, I mean, I really like how it turned out. Happy to have used it. Certainly economical. I used one full big spool for this. And the spool that I had used, I had bought it and started with the Token of Fall project. So it wasn't 100% full spool. And I had to buy another one. I just bought a small spool because I didn't want a big one floating around. And I maybe used a good quarter of that, maybe half. It's hard to tell on a spool. I was starting to see the plastic core at the top of the small spool. So I think like 1.5 of those is fair enough to say. I calculated the meters. Jacob from Modern Folk Embroidery told me, or tells you on the chart, how many skeins and essentially how many meters of thread he used, or to buy, so that you can do it in whatever color you want. Isn't that pretty? I used my Bow Nash ironing mat to iron this, which leads me into a thing. Okay, my husband doesn't watch my Flosstube. What is said on Flosstube stays on Flosstube. The door is open. He may be hearing me. Who knows? He might also have his headphones on. But apparently, he has used my iron to iron his clothes. In general, I don't have a problem with that. But he left my iron sitting up. And I have an Olicio, I think is how you say it, iron. So when you release your hand from it, it has a sensor and it kind of sits up so you don't have to keep picking it up. You can just keep it flat. You don't have to keep doing this all the time. And I use a dry iron. I just don't want my iron to get yucky and spit stuff onto my fabrics. I'd rather use, oh look, a spray if I need to dampen something. And I have another one for just plain water, and I have one that has a little bit of starch in it. So I came in with my iron sitting up and water in the iron. I wasn't happy. It just makes me believe that he's in here when I'm not in here. Oh, and I'm not home. He's in here using my scissors to cut paper. And those of you who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. So, we'll leave that. We'll move on. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about how I charted this out. Because I charted this out. Obviously, it's not in the chart. The M-Bell one is. And it took me a while to kind of know exactly what I wanted to do. Really did want to try and emulate it, use the inspiration, kind of do the 1/1 initial, and then use the alphabet and she used this alphabet mostly, and then it looked like she made up her own alphabet. She used that middle alphabet for the uppercase initials, and then kind of made up her own thing. So, as you guys know, I quilt as well. I've taken a class from the wonderful Pepper Corey. If you do not know who she is, I highly recommend following her. She does a lot of her own designs. She's a quilt designer. She's a historian. And she's also a fabric producer. She helps produce shock cottons, which is where the weft and the weave of the fabrics are two different colors, creating their own special color and from different angles. It's a really cool play. So the class I took was essentially like a wabi-sabi class on how to take basically, you know, sorry, words are hard. There is a Japanese theory, and the word is going to escape me, where you mend with gold. So if you have a broken cup of pottery or ceramic, you would take some gold and weld it together. And that in itself became more beautiful than the original. So that concept Pepper Corey has taken into taking old projects that weren't completed, ugly things, and making them into new. And how can you wabi-sabi it together? In that class, she recommended getting graph paper that was 11 by 17, because that's more of like a imaginary quilt size. And what I forgot was that the grid squares are 8 by 8, which is perfect for quilters because most squares are divided by 2. Most quilt blocks are 8-inch blocks, 6-inch blocks, 12-inch blocks. That's very common to have that, and that helps you kind of make your own design and layout, so you can kind of see on an 11 by 17 paper very similar what your quilt block would be like. So I wanted to have this big piece of paper, and then I was like, oh shoot, I need 10-inch blocks. I went to go buy 10-inch grids on Amazon because Amazon is my store of choice, which may be unpopular, but nothing like not having to go to a store in my book. I love it. However, the same version of this from the same company is like twice as much money. I think it was like $26 for an 11 by 17 with 10 squares to a grid. So where this grid here is, that would be 10, which is how most cross-stitch designs are. The 10th line is a little darker, so you can help count. So as you can see, I just made my own 10-inch hash marks there. So I counted on the Modern Folk chart what that exact opening was and what that exact height was between the bottom row and the border. And I calculated that to be 12 high and 110 inches wide. And then I went ahead and charted my initials, and you can see I did several iterations of 1/1. So, which I think is kind of interesting to look at. And pardon me if this is not interesting to you, but I totally nerded out on this. So you can see here I was making my faux 10 by 10 square because it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around it. You're essentially in a 1/1 situation. You're essentially making one square or one stitch 4 stitches. So I had to make like a larger grid out of the 4 or out of the 1, which would be 2/2 essentially. So that I could help kind of make my own style. And I tried making my own by drawing my bee and then kind of making the squares around that. I used, which I should have brought in, I'm sorry, the sampler motif by Brenda Keys, I believe. I got that spiral bound when I did my spiral binding. Ugh, it's a joy. She's got tons of different motifs. You can make your own sampler. You totally can make your own sampler. So she's got like 3 whole pages of people, 3 whole pages of houses, pages of trees, of flower bowls, all the motifs that you typically see in a sampler. She has brought them all together. Hi, Mia. Hi, Mia. So I used, ultimately I used this one, but this is also from her. Oh, I'm showing you the charts. I shouldn't have showed you that. That's proprietary. Don't steal that, please. It's one letter, but I should not be showing you somebody else's charts. Only mine. My apologies. But I thought it was interesting on how I did that. I won't show it to you anymore. But you can scroll back and find out. But that's how I used the calculation to see where it needed to be. And then I emulated where she started. Close to the border and then kind of spread out, but not exactly centered. I didn't want it to be centered. So, she's done. So now I can get a chunky frame. Oh, Mia. Mia's so happy. Look how sweet she is. Now I can get a chunky frame and find a place on my wall for it. But I think what I'm going to do with that is there's an art store right in the corner of my neighborhood, and I think I'm going to go there. They have framed I did a sampler for my wedding, signifying my marriage to my husband. And I should show that to you someday. I don't think I've shown that to you. But I had them frame it, and it was at a time that I was not really aware of what I needed to ask about framing, and I'm sure they did a fine job. I'm pleased with the framing. But now that I know what I know, I think I'll work with them to have them cut my foam core, and then I will wrap it or lace it, or however I'm going to secure it to that and then bring it back to them and have them put it in the frame that I choose. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So, on to what is next. As I've spoken about, is I am going to, I took Mrs. Campbell out of her scroll frame. That's my progress so far. Not too shabby. And this is on 46 Tabby Cat Creme Brulee, I believe. Using the 103 called for silks, except for one. I got my kit from the attic, and I don't think they had like the dark green. I think it's actually a different color than called for. But I got it from them, so whatever, you can call them at the attic in Mesa, Arizona, and have them whip one up for you as well. So, what I'm going to do is, I didn't bring my 6-inch hoop. I am absolutely loving the hoop I got from, is it hoopandframe.com? Ooh, maybe. If you want to know where I got my frame, reach out to me. I can look it up and tell you again. But I ordered it online. It's the same company that Nicola Parkman, who is one of the co-creators of Hands Across the Sea samplers, likes to use. I got the 5/8 thick 6 by 6-inch diameter. It's perfect because I was using, as I throw things, this 4-inch hoop based on the recommendation of one of the Flosstube ladies, and she's the one that does the dyeing, not Rachel, but I can't remember her name now. This is a Nurge, also a good company. I really like this frame, but it wasn't allowing me to work. I had to move it too much. That's what I didn't like about it. When I needed to park my threads, I didn't have enough room, and then I had to move it because I didn't have enough work area. But I do like this size, and it was nice to hold. And this is a narrower version of it, so the one I have is nice and thick. And what I like about it is, if you can kind of see how my thumb is, there's enough space for my thumb to rest on the frame and not on the inside where my fabric is, which kind of can stretch it out. So I've been keeping my 103s for this project in these spool pods, also recommended by Nicola Parkman. Highly recommend these. And I think honestly what you could do, because these are a little more expensive, they're from England, but I think you could get like silicone ice maker trays that are in the same type of shape. And it would do the same type of job for you. But let me get this back in here. Look how cute it is in my bag. Isn't that cute? So I'll be able to have Mrs. Campbell right in there, nice and handy, and get started working back on her. I did buy a second chart from Hands Across the Sea, the PDF, so I could use the iPad, and I'm really liking that. The other thing I wanted to show you guys is something I got that I didn't talk about on the last Flosstube on the things I bought at the class. I got these Martelli tweezers. They're really thin tweezers, and they're not the only brand that makes them. It's just what she sold. This helped me a lot with grabbing some threads on the back of my work. So, highly recommend. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was the 24 hours cross stitch. There's lots of cool things that go on in this cross stitch community where different Flosstubers have created different hashtags and things to do together to kind of help stay motivated, especially since most of us like to have multiple projects on the go, and it's hard to kind of keep your mojo up. So there's fun things like WhipGo, which you make a bingo chart out of your whips, and the person who runs it calls numbers out for the month, and you work on them for, you know, whatever you decide to choose, whether you work 5 days on the same project that month or something like that, just to help you kind of move all your projects along. So 24 hours of cross stitch is one of those events, and one of my sewing group members that meet from the South Carolina area, they wanted to get together, and most of us couldn't do like another day, so we wanted to Zoom on Friday night. Since I'm very familiar with Zoom with the Wednesday Stitchers, I offered to create the link for everybody to join in, and we chatted and stitched from like 7 to 9-ish, 9 or 10-ish, I can't even remember. But during that time, it was suggested that we have a group project, a group themed project amongst us for a little fun as well in our group. And it was suggested to have something to do with a rabbit. Now, I don't know where it was generated from, but I'm sure it had something to do with it being the year of the rabbit, and it was Chinese New Year. Right? Chinese New Year? Yeah. So, I don't collect rabbits. They're cute. My mother-in-law does. I've done a couple of rabbit cross stitches, as you may recall in the past, in recent history, and I don't necessarily want to have a ton of decor for it, so I was in a little bit of a quandary. It's like, well, I could do a fox and rabbit design company. I could buy their linen for something, or I could do one of their charts. And then I just kind of rummaged through the charts I have, and I came across one that I wanted to do. So I'm going to show you an oldie, but a goodie. Prairie Schooler. This is a really tiny one. Do you see the date and do you see the price on the chart? Isn't that fun? $19.97. And this chart cost my mom a whole $1. Oh, how times have changed. So this is going to be like a 3x4 type size. And isn't she cute? So did you see that she's the Prairie Fairy? So this is the spring cleaning fairy arrives on her dust bunny, ready to tackle the usual household chores with a mop, thimble of soapy water, and a brush made of thistle. Cute. DMC's, and I did buy fox and rabbit fabric to go on this, because if you recall, the next project I really want to do is called a unicorn, a peacock, a unicorn, and a badger, which is based off an old tapestry, and it's basically full coverage. So I don't need to have an expensive fabric for that, because you're not going to see it. So I didn't want to buy fox and rabbit fabric for that project, because I need a very big piece. I think I'm just going to get as like Zygarde Platinum or something like that, so I can play with it. Unless I do Trixie Tricycle, who's another Flosstuber. If you don't watch her, I recommend it. She just became a fabric dyer, and she wanted to do that same project, and she wanted to dye a piece of fabric the same color of that green that is the background for most of it, so that she didn't have to do that stitching. So if I buy that fabric, that's the only way out of that. I haven't decided yet. But I have the threads and the fabrics for this coming, and we're gonna meet on every other Friday, because in theory our stitching group meets every other Sunday. So we're gonna Zoom every other Friday. If you'd like to join me, let me know. But you too, whether you join us on the Zoom call or not, is you too can be part of the rabbit celebration. I think we're calling it the Rabbit Project. So find your rabbit project and get it started. I wanted to do another small. I enjoyed doing that. I happen to have it still here because I haven't done anything else with it. Haven't been in my sewing room. I enjoy doing this so much. And I think that one, the one I'm going to do, is a little bit bigger than this. So, yeah, looking forward to that. So those two projects will be my projects on the go. I still need to, okay, true confessions of a quilter. I'm trying to get my smaller quilt completed. As I was basting, I found a seam that was not sewn very well. So now I need to unbaste, and I need to sew that section a little bit better, and then rebaste. So I've been avoiding it because my excuse was, but I'm so close with them, Belle. I can't stop now. So I need to get that. So let me back up. My next thing really does need to be back on my quilt, because I do need to get that done. I really do want to participate in the Charlotte Quilters Guild quilt show in March, which means I have to have it done in the next week or two so that I can be confident that I'll have it done in time to turn in for a couple weeks before the show so they can get things organized. So quilt needs to be my next focus. God help me. Ooh, it just started raining. Today was the most delightful rainy day. I don't enjoy tons of rainy days, but there are just some days where you just want to get extra cozy and just stay inside, and it was delightfully rainy. It wasn't scary, windy, you might have an issue type rain. It was just steady rain all day long, and Mia is so confused. We just had a little deluge, and you can hear it outside, and because she can't see, she's like, what's that noise? So she's looking at the window very curiously. And again, she can't see. She's just pointed in that direction, cocking her head like, what's happening out there? What's happening? So with that, I will do a little editing, get this bad boy up on the webs, and I hope you have a great couple weeks, and I will see you soon, hopefully with a completed quilt to show you, because if it's not done by the next time I do a Flosstube, I might not have an entry into the quilt show. Wish me luck. I can do it. It's not that hard. It's just coming in and sitting down and doing it. And it's not a big quilt, Becky. You can do it. I think the other thing is I really don't know how I want to quilt it. I think it's just going to be straight lines. Just get it done, right? Just get it done. Straight line quilting is still very beautiful. It doesn't have to be a special design, because the fabrics and the design of the pattern is already a little busy. I think I just talked myself down and out of it. You guys have a good week. I will see you soon. Bye.